Good afternoon. I am the moderator for Session 3, Digital Transformation in Local Finance. Jueonju, it's a pleasure to meet with you. So we are all living under the age of platform economy that greatly impacts every aspect of our lives, especially it's a transaction-centered platform that we talk about. But today we're going to talk about the platform of relationships to talk about finance. We have about 1 hour and 15 minutes for this session, which will be opened by the first presentation by Ms. Diana Finch, who is the Managing Director of Bristol Pay CIC in the UK, followed by Professor Lee Jae-min of Jeonju University, who's going to talk about the local love gift certificates in Korea. And we are going to have free discussions on local love gift certificates and digital transformation, Good Trade Pay of Buyeo County, local community-based integrated platform service, and the values of connection between local finance and local O2O platforms. Now let me invite Ms. Diana Finch for her presentation on new currencies to count non-financial values. Please welcome her with a round of applause.
Hello, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. So yes, my name is Diana Finch and I'm here today to talk to you about the work we've been doing in Bristol. Some of you will have heard of the Bristol pound, which was a local currency we had in Bristol from 2012 until last year. We've been working on new ideas since then, and that's really what I'm going to talk to you about today. I haven't yet found the funding to create the platform for these ideas, but we really hope we'll get the funding. And in the meantime, we think it's really important to share these ideas as much as possible. So I'm just going to share my screen. It might take a few moments. And slideshow. Okay, I hope you can see that. Good. So I'm going to start with a very brief history of the Bristol pound, just for those of you that don't know about it. And then I'll explain why we started to think about these new ideas. I'll then go on to describe what the ideas for the new thing, Bristol Pay, are. And then I'll delve into the concepts behind that. And those are really about counting non-financial values and other capitals and how we can change behavior positively for people and planet. So we'll start with this very brief history of the Bristol pound. Back in about 2009, there were people in Bristol who were from the transition movement, which was all about localization. And they thought maybe we could have a local town pound currency, similar to the ones that were already operating in places like Totnes and Lewis. The main aim was localization. If we could bring production and consumption closer together, then we could reduce transportation and so reduce carbon dioxide emissions. But as well, by having a local currency, we hoped that we could prioritize independent local businesses and keep money circulating in the city, and so create more wealth for the city and create a more resilient local economy. So it took a few years from that first meeting in 2009 to actually launch the currency. We launched in 2012, And over the next 3 years, we grew very rapidly. By about 2015, we had something like 1,300 members and 600 businesses. And throughout the whole life of the project, about £6 million was transacted through the system. And yet, in 2021, even though in many ways it had been successful, world-changing, it was the first currency, that local currency that you could use to pay local taxes, it was only the second scheme in the UK to have digital money. And despite all this, we had to close it in 2021. So the big question is why? Why didn't it work? Why didn't it thrive? And I think one of the problems was that to break even as a proposition in its own right, because we couldn't rely on grants forever, we needed to be something like 50 times the size that we were. Just to put it in perspective, when you look at how many people were actually using the Bristol pound on a monthly basis in Bristol, it was about 0.02% of the population. So a very, very small amount of people. And at that level, we couldn't make it viable. And we couldn't seem to grow because the messaging didn't make sense to most people. Most people who joined the Bristol pound already thought just like us. We didn't have any of the usual value propositions that most consumers are used to. Things like a discount card or a loyalty scheme where you might get cash back. There was no obvious reason for people to join. They thought, what's in it for me? We also had a real problem with our tech. And that was largely because when we were designing the system in 2010, the Electronic Money Institute regulations didn't yet exist. They were brought in 2011 and weren't really functioning until 2012. And as a result, we ended up with quite a clunky regulatory system with a partner who had to provide the regulation for us. But as well, we didn't really help businesses. And that was our main aim, right, was to help local businesses to thrive. And we had said to the local businesses, please join the Bristol pound because we will drive new customers to your door. We're going to have lots of consumers joining who want to spend their Bristol pounds in local independent shops, and they will come to you. In the end, it seemed that wasn't really true because we didn't have lots of new people using the currency. In fact, what we found, or what the shops told us, is that their existing customers started to pay with Bristol pounds instead of with normal money. It was a more annoying way for people to pay. It meant they had to change their tills, change their bookkeeping, train their staff on all these different new methods of payment. And we were making another ask of businesses. We were asking them to change their supply chains. And really, that is a very risky thing for small businesses to do. It destroys the relationships that they have built up with suppliers, perhaps for many years, and is risky. So really, we were creating problems for businesses rather than helping them. And so the question is, what next? We couldn't get grants to run the old system. We couldn't grow the old system. We needed to do something new if we were going to survive. And so we looked at the learnings from the Bristol pound before we started to think about what could come next. And the first learning is that it must set a really low bar for entry. With Bristol pound, we kind of said, if you think just like us, if you're this woke or intelligent or think this much and care this much about the local economy, then come and join the Bristol pound. That's too small, too narrow a focus. We need to have a low bar where we're welcoming to everybody, where everybody can get on board. We need to have a value proposition that works for just normal people and normal businesses. And then once we've onboarded lots of people, we need to take them on a little gradual journey of change. And that way, with lots of people all changing a little bit, we can create a big impact. Now, for that to happen, it's got to be fun and engaging. It mustn't make life more difficult or risky for people. And as well, we need much better tech and data than we had before. Now, so we had two real problems as we were thinking about what could come after Bristol Pound. We needed to be financially viable as an operation and have the kind of USP, unique selling point, that would make lots of people join. And we also wanted to create this social and environmental change. And fairly early on, I realized that those two probably needed to be separate. So two separate functions on one platform. One function is something that meets people where they are, a payment method that has a special USP, and then also a separate thing which engages people in thinking about their environmental and social responsibilities and behavior. Usually when you go to a shop or a cafe or something and you pay with your phone or your card, the money seems to magically leave your bank account and end up in the merchant's bank account. The reason that happens, even though my bank is with one bank and the merchant's bank is with a completely different institution, is there are a lot of third-party institutions that help the money make that leap from my account to the trader's account. There are things like Visa and MasterCard, Stripe, PayPal, WorldPay. I'm sure you've heard of all of these companies that are global and facilitate an international payment system. The problem with that is that all of those third parties need paying, and so the transaction charge that the consumer, or sorry, that the merchant pays to cover the cost of all that is quite significant, and that money is just leaving the city. And to put that into perspective, in a city the size of Bristol, we've estimated that about £60 million in transaction charges leave the city every year. So if instead of having an open loop payment system, we had a closed loop payment system where my account is on the same system as the business's account, well then credit their account, debit my account. It's just a journal entry. We don't need any third-party organizations. And so we could set a slightly lower transaction charge for the merchants and still make a surplus. And we could use that surplus, being a non-profit organization, to fund local voluntary sector services, things like my child's youth club, my mother's lunch club for elderly people, or something like that. And it turns out this is really popular with the businesses. They were saying, oh yes, we would like to have a payment method that helps the local community, that helps to fund the services that we all rely on. So that's one side. That's how we onboard people and businesses with a really simple value proposition, and it can operate at scale. And by the way, it works with big businesses as well as independent businesses. The big supermarkets want to be able to say, we care about your little community. And at the moment, they don't have an effective way of doing that. So the other side of the platform would then be around rewarding certain sorts of useful behaviors, like reusing my water bottle and not buying new plastic bottles every time, or reusing a coffee cup when I'm out and about. It might be taking shorter showers. It might be helping my neighbor. It might be changing so that I do more active transport instead of jumping in the car. And businesses as well can have challenges and games that they can get involved with. For example, paying better wages to poorer staff. And the reason they're going to do this for these points or tokens, this is not about financial gain for the individuals or the businesses. This is very much about feeling good about yourself. These are much more, these are not like money. These are much more like your likes on Facebook or your following on Twitter, your retweets and shares, the views of your TikTok videos. This is what we're talking about. So at this point, I just want to talk a little bit more about money, about capital, and about value. When we talk about tokens, I think many people just think I'm talking about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, and I'm not. I'm talking about a much more general use of the English word token. In English, if I hear that you're having a bad time and you're sad, and I think, oh, I'd like to give you some flowers, just to show that I care about you. And that is a token. It's a token of my friendship. A bunch of flowers. It doesn't matter if they're free, if I pick them up from my garden, or if I bought them a beautiful bouquet. They are still just a token of how much I care for you. Or I might have one of these trolley tokens to use a supermarket trolley, even if I don't have a pound coin, which is what we usually use in England for a trolley. I could use one of these tokens and I can still use the trolley. The token is not worth a pound. It just enables me to use the trolley. And when we think about tokens in this way, we can see that money is just a special sort of token. It's a token that is designed for the market economy. It enables us to have a standard unit of account. It's something we can exchange easily. And it is something that, apart from in periods of hyperinflation, generally stores its value so that, if I earn some money last month, I can use it to pay my bills this month. But it only works in a market economy. It is a tool for a market economy. And as Alanis Obobsoin pointed out to the United Nations in the early 1970s, actually money doesn't really have intrinsic value. It is just a man-made point system for a market economy. And when we talk about the financial value of something, it doesn't tell us anything about the real value. And I think we can see this with carbon credits. We've invented carbon credits to try and cost in to the market economy the price of carbon, and supposedly to encourage businesses to be more thoughtful about their carbon emissions. But actually, we've been using carbon credits for 25 years. It has done nothing to slow the pace of carbon dioxide emissions. And also importantly, when we look at the figures around carbon trading, that tells us nothing about carbon dioxide. It's not measuring anything real. It's just a financial proxy that does nothing. Now, if we think about the actual values, the real things, the things that matter, which, to me, money doesn't, apart from within the context of a market economy. What matters is our environmental capital, our social capital, our knowledge capital, our ability to think creatively, and our manufactured capital. Because if we want to have, the latest train, we've got to have well-maintained tracks, right? So there are interdependencies within manufactured capital. And we need to be counting the actual thing, not some kind of money proxy. So here's an idea. Our societies rely very much on kindness and connectedness to each other. And we can think of this as thanks or gratitude. And we were thinking, how could we start to measure how grateful and kind our communities are? We thought we could have a token to count thanks. Now, this might look a bit like a time banking scheme or a Let's. Yeah, it looks like, oh, I do something nice for someone and they do something, then I have a token and I can spend it and have someone else do something that I need. But it's fundamentally different, because with time banking or Let's, somebody has to be able to put something into the system before they can get something out, right? I have to maybe cut someone's hair, then they give me a token, and then I can ask someone else to put up some shelves with me. But my mother, who is nearly 90, she can't really do anything useful. So she has no way of using something like time banking or Let's to have her needs met. If instead we think about a universal basic income of thanks tokens topped up every day to a certain level, then my mother can use those tokens to thank people for going to the shops for her, for helping her with cleaning. These people still get to feel good about doing the nice thing they have done. And we can also encourage that even more by making the tokens degrade over time. So that, if I stop doing nice things, gradually my points, my thanks tokens decreases because I'm not keeping up that lovely behavior. And it turns out that we can design lots of different tokens to do different things. So thanks tokens, volunteering tokens, but we can also have voting tokens, tokens that are like badges to show skills that we have learned or that we think are valuable and important, tokens that are counting active miles, tokens that are counting reuse, which is helping to move us towards a circular economy. So here's another example, and perhaps worth saying that the average power drill in the UK is, in fact, I think it might be globally, is used for 4 minutes. People buy a drill, they put up some shelves, they put the drill in the attic or in the garage, and then 5 years later, 10 years later, when they want to put up some more shelves, they go to find the drill, assuming they've remembered they've got one, and they find it no longer works. It's gone rusty, it's seized up. And so it gets thrown away and they buy a new one. But drills should work for a lot more than 4 minutes. That's a lot of wastage of precious resources for 4 minutes of usage. If instead we could make it fun and enjoyable to count how much our power drills, or this is, I think, an electric screwdriver, has been used, so that each time I give it to someone or lend it to someone, I increase the point value of that item. We can imagine a competition where we say, hey, this is the best power tool in Bristol because it's been mended and shared so many times. It's done so much useful work, and it's really adding to our circular economy and saving resources of the planet. So these are the kinds of games we're trying to do, but they're only going to work, or are they really going to change people's behavior? I guess that's the question. Just because we invent these tokens, it doesn't necessarily mean that people will use them. And so I guess, how do we know that people will actually use these? How do we know that will work? And it turns out there's a lot of academic research in this area. And what works is not necessarily extrinsic rewards. I think oftentimes governments think, oh, we have to have an incentive or a penalty, some kind of financial nudge to do the right thing. But actually, there's plenty of research to suggest that that really doesn't work, and it's not really how we make decisions. And in fact, there is research on the contrary, which suggests that when you pay people a teeny tiny amount, a kind of derisory amount, it actually undermines their heartfelt reason for doing whatever it is, and it undermines that positive behavior. What can make a difference to people's behavior, or in fact what drives us every day, is a model that's been developed in Scotland called the ISM model of behavior, individual, social and material. And what that says is that how I behave is first of all about what I believe about myself, then it's what I believe other people think of me, and then it's what I can actually do in my community. Now, we keep being told that we must fly less, right? We know that to cut our carbon, we should fly less, and yet people are carrying on flying. They know, but they carry on flying on their long-haul flights on holiday. And it's because they have a personal belief. I deserve some luxury. I've worked hard And this is a good thing to do, to take my wife and my family away on holiday. They will be very grateful. My friends will be very envious. It will look great on social media. They'll all go, wow, you've been to Cuba, fabulous. And of course, it's so easy. Relatively speaking, the cost is very low, and there are lots of great resorts, loads of flights. So we need to change that thinking that goes on in our heads. We need to change how we think other people are thinking about us. So these tokens are not about money. They're not earning and spending. They're more like a game or social media. They're like your Fitbit steps. They're like your Facebook likes or your Duolingo points that are they're helping you to develop good habits. They're making you experiment with some different behaviors. They're giving you some new messages about what people think about you. What we really need to do is change the social norms. People don't try new behaviors easily. They don't want to look stupid or silly. They don't want people to laugh about them. And so people are reluctant to try new things, but we have to try and change the social norms if we're going to really fix this. Just to finish off, the garden on the right actually saw some people in the UK be evicted for their flat on the basis, or their home, on the basis that they weren't looking after their garden. Now, this garden on the right is a fantastic garden. It's great for wildlife. It's great for carbon capture. There are no chemicals being used on it. But in the UK, what is normal and acceptable is a garden like the one on the left, which is dreadful. Loads of chemicals to control the weeds. There's no biodiversity. There's no carbon capture going on. So we need to change the norms. And we think that Bristol Pay is a way of doing that, as well as being a financial tool that can help to raise money for our voluntary sector services and create a simple reason to join. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. We were able to learn about the history of the Bristol pound and why social value matters. So it was very helpful for us in understanding the function and the role of Bristol Pay. And thank you once again for your presentation. And we are now going to move on to our second presentation on looking back on the transformation of local love gift certificates by Professor Lee Jae-min of Jeonju University. Good afternoon. So listening to the case of Bristol Pay, I was able to understand that you have a similar direction, but a different kind of failure story. I think Bristol had struggled in finding a financial incentive, it seems. And in our case, we focused too much on providing financial incentives that led to failure. So also in Korea, going forward, how to deal with financial incentives will be a key for the success of local gift certificates. So in my presentation, I'm going to talk about my experience in being involved in building local love gift certificates, especially in the city of Jueonju. So I'm going to compare the different certificates of different cities, their benefits, and how these experiences will impact our future direction. So I'm sure you have experience in using local love gift certificates, in short LLGC. So rather than LLGC, many say the word local currency, but LRGCs are a sort of voucher or a coupon that is used for policy financing. If it's going to be local currency, it needs to be circulated, but In Korea, we use LRGCs that are issued only once, and when it's used, it's going to be cashed out. So it's rather closer to the form of a gift certificate or a coupon. So, what was the purpose of first designing LRGC in Korea? In the beginning, we wanted to block the outflow of capital from a city in order to seek stability against the shock from outside. In addition, another reason was to support the SMEs, local SMEs, to revitalize the local economy and strengthen the local community. That was our intention in the beginning. But as we went through COVID-19, there were economic slowdowns and the effect, and we just focused on supporting revitalization of local economy and started to ignore every other value. So the success or the failure of LRGC became the amount of circulation and usage. So as you know from experience, there are three forms of LRGC in Korea, which is paper-based, and at the center you will see the double LGC for Jeonju, which is card type. So use this card just like a credit card, and this can be charged with money. And we also have mobile LGC. So the card type is the dominant form for its convenience in Korea. Because today we're talking about digital transformation or DX. DX in local currency or LGC could be a transition into card type or mobile certificates. In Jeonju, we don't have any of these forms because we only use QR codes. But I want to today talk about 꽃전, Jeonju's LLGC. That was a pilot project for testing. It was built in a local community, and let me talk about how it has been continuously evolving and the current status of Jeonju double LGC to understand the overall direction of Korea's LLGCs. So let's talk about payment form. You think about the local government, merchants, and users and financial institutions. So payment impacts all these four entities. So to design an LLGC, local governments first need to attract merchants and also will incur administrative costs for operation, and merchants will have to equip themselves with a payment system. If it's a paper-based certificate, it's no problem, but with digital transformation, you must need a digital payment settlement system. And for the user, if they use paper-based certificate, it's a little inconvenient, but it's also quite easy because it's just used like cash. But with DX, you move to card or mobile-based certificates. And we have the people under digital divide who are not used to using those devices, so it could lead to a problem. Then from the view of financial institutions, when they use paper-based certificates, they can get commission from transacting this. But if they use DX for card type, they will earn card commissions. So when we think about DX, we only focus on user convenience, but there are other elements that impact different players. So we need to understand all of this to diagnose the current status of DX in terms of LRGC in Korea. Let me take the example of Gunsan LLGC. I took this information from their website. In 2019, DX began with LLGC toward card type and mobile type. Of course, paper-based continue to be used, but gradually, Gunsan has been striving to reduce the share of paper-based, and they posed a limitation in paper-based with a lower standard. So the most reliable way is to use QR codes, because this almost eliminates the commission or fees from the merchant's perspective, and from the user effect perspective there can be a problem because in fact only the people who are digitally savvy can use this. But commission toward financial institution can be construed as outflow of capital once again. So if a commission is involved, we're not solving the problem of outflow. So in this regard, QR codes are the most desirable form, and there won't be any delay or latency in processing, as in the case of mobile. So, but there's the issue that consumers prefer the credit card type. So, what kind of impact did DX have on double LGC? So let's look at the amount of circulation with this graph. We first adopted these certificates starting with Hometown Love certificates in 1997 at the beginning of the exchange rate crisis. For the next 10 years after this, we didn't see a lot of growth in usage. And from 2016, starting with Gangwon-do province, we saw metropolitan areas aiming to prevent outflow of capital by utilizing LLGCs. But at that time, we didn't have a lot of incentives, so that's why they failed. Then, starting with Pohang City, we started to see successful cases. And a success criteria of success is circulation of about 100 billion won. The factor for success was a discount of 10%. Usually the discount was 3 to 5%. So that's how Posang succeeded. If you come to think of it, with 10% discount, everybody would try to buy this. But there's another issue that there's a lack of merchants. Without merchants on the platform business, there could be an issue because we need a balanced growth between demand and supply. So without the right strategy, people won't use these local currencies or certificates because it's inconvenient. The next example is Incheon. In 2018 to 2019, Incheon used a system for DX, utilizing the existing credit card settlement network. So you didn't really have to attract new merchants, and they started to expand rapidly, and at the same time with government subsidy, it grew rapidly. This is when we started to see a rapid growth under the trend of DX in Korea's gift certificate system, and you can understand how much of an impact DX had. So under the circumstances with a lot of public demand, Jeonju started to think we might need to issue something ourselves. So Jeonju started with the Gotjan Living Lab, a group to think about how to resolve or tackle this LLGC issue. The biggest problem was funding. Continued provision of 10% discount needs a lot of funds, and Jeonju City was worried about funding. The best way to reduce this is to facilitate circulation. So if certificates are cashed out after use, you need more funding to issue this. Anyway, because it's used within the local community, you can prevent the outflow of capital, but funding the circulation every time led to massive financing. So that was an issue. And another thing was that with Gotjan, they wanted to pursue building community value. So they wanted to come up with a model that facilitates or promotes community value. So after the discussion of the living lab for the first time in Korea, Jueonju adopted the donation design system but it didn't succeed because not many people made a donation. So in naming the certificate, they used the names like Angel to emphasize that this upholds community value, but it was a failure anyway. So in the end, they moved toward the digital way of issuance. So let's talk about the Gutjeon Living Lab in detail. Usually discounts from LLGCs provide 5% discount. So with Gutjeon, we gave 5% discount. But if consumers wanted, we helped them donate this 5%. So there will be donors and people getting discounts depending on their choice. LLGCs all provide discount, so when people use this, we think they use this because of monetary value. But because we donated the discount, we helped them raise community value. And those who wanted an economic discount could get a discount. And also for merchants, when they converted this into cash, they had to pay 3% commission. And this led to a 2% deficit. So in order to fill this gap, we needed a lot of donation. So we did an experiment under the Living Lab, which was a success with this model. We were able to prevent a deficit. So we understood that we can just stimulate the good intentions of people to make this work. But this is a little different from capitalism. And with this model, because merchants pay 3% conversion fee, this is used once again by other merchants. So this leads to circulation, and there would be a herd effect to a certain number of merchants, where most of the conversion will take place. So in the end, the people who get discount with LLGC are supported by the merchants who sell more Gutjeon. So we had redistribution by maintaining this community. So based on this experience, we built the Jueonju double LGC. Not many consumers are aware of this system. Even consumers and merchants are able to make a donation, but this was quite a failure, so we didn't see a lot of donations. So we reflected the result of Gutjeon in the Jueonju LLGC. But in the end, the Jueonju LLGC ended up blocking the circulation of Gutjeon. We started with Gutjeon in March 2019. And we saw the circulation in small communities in a month. And in 2020, it starts to fall because of the Jueonju LLGC, and it continued falling. So you can see that the amount of circulation fell from like 7 million to 2 million to 3 million. So in the end, because LLGC provided economic incentive, people were slanted toward the Jeonju LLGC, and while Gocheon, that lacked economic value, was shunned. In the case of Bristol, they didn't think about an economic incentive from the beginning. But in our case, we actually educated people, trained them with the economic incentive, but wanted to transition into a non-economic incentive, which was very difficult. It will be very difficult in any case. With Gocheon, we focused on upholding community value. So on the paper-based certificate, we utilized the circulation network to provide loans to the underprivileged without interest rate by creating this kind of bank. We started designing the bank from 2020, but due to COVID-19, it was delayed. And last year in December, we launched the Living Lab Bank by the support of some cooperatives. And this photo was taken yesterday. After 8 months of our experiment, we had a presentation of the result. And the performance was better than expected. So this is the schematic of our design. The left is Gocheon, and on the right you can see the Gocheon Micro Lending Bank. So the name of this bank is Gocheon, Barn for All. But there were concerns that there would be defaults on the loan. But in the end, when we designed this model, we made an assumption that 90% payment will be a success. I think this is similar to the Jubilee Bank case. In the end, people who are delinquent, we cannot force them to repay. They are vulnerable people anyway, so we will write the debt off. And we also relied on the Grameen Bank case. So there's no collateral to the loan. If they want, they can get a lending anyway. So in a month, we provided 5 people with the loan, and in the end, we ended up with 40 people. So they repay according to their own schedule. And as of yesterday, the repayment rate was 99.7%. I think it's the highest repayment rate in Korea's financial history. So I think we were able to achieve 99.7% is because there was no interest. When we interviewed the borrowers, they said, "We were so thankful that you lended us money who were shunned by the bank. So we just wanted to pay you back out of gratitude." So we understood that the power of trust is stronger than the power of interest. So now let's talk about LGCs once again. If we used LGCs, they provide discount to consumers, and consumers can use this to spend. So it means that the spending incurs within the local community. And we prevent capital outflow. And secondly, in the process, government will spend 10% or 20% with their budget. And this leads to consumption. And the consumption or spending is transferred from non-merchants to merchants. So we can achieve the three goals that we had in mind. But the important thing is that with LLGC, depending on how you attract or design merchants, the capital either stays inside or flows out. If the LLGC leads to production, local production, circulation increases, thereby increasing production within the local area once again. But if you spend a lot in merchants that buy a lot of intermediary goods from outside, circulation will be lower. So that's why the government has to think about a lot of issues and spend a lot of administrative cost. So with DX, how can we utilize LGC? This for LGC. So we can confirm this from the design. Here you can see various LGCs from Jeonju, Puyo, and Iksan. When you make a comparison of the three, consumers receive a discount and merchants will experience spending. So everything must be supporting the vulnerable, but if we don't intervene, the consumers usually tend to visit larger merchants. So the unlevel playing field maintains. So you need to consider how to block this when designing your currency. This is easy to solve using DX. But we don't really incorporate DX or technology in our design, unfortunately, especially with Jeonju LGC. We also have the circular incentive. So we're focused on how to create a circular local economy. In this regard, a circular incentive is where the incentive is provided when a merchant spends this once again in another merchant. This strengthens circulation in the local economy, and producers will receive local LGC. And this Puyo LGC has all of these elements. Jeonju not at all. So with DX, Puyo utilizes DX the best. So who's the biggest beneficiary in LGC? It's the consumer. And with DX, who's the biggest beneficiary? They are the platform operators. With DX, we will have platform operators as another player, and the biggest losers will be small SMEs. They need to equip themselves with a settlement system, and they will now be exposed to new sales. Even with the same level of sales, they may have to pay more taxes. In the end, during the process of DX of LLGC, the victimized are the SMEs or MSMEs. Actually, the ones we wanted to protect will become the victims. So I think in terms of DX, there is a problem. And lastly, in relation to our topic, the reason for using double LGC is to create a local economic bloc. So from the mainstream economics, this is creating an inefficiency. But that is not our goal. If the local economic bloc can lead to local circulation, we can reduce carbon footprint. We need to be able to reach this stage, but it's not possible with the current design of LGC. And if we add ICT platforms, it will lead to economies of scale and network assets. As was mentioned with Bristol City, Local currencies are not just settlement system. It's a system where people meet and it's a local asset of the residents. It must be owned by the residents. Currently, the platforms are owned by local governments. So just like in Bristol, what I want to recommend is that this must be owned by the residents as a public asset, the platforms. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.
저희가 이제 그 발표를 보면서 재밌는 것은 영국의 브리스톨 파운드 같은 경우에는 실패 요인이 크게 하나는 많은 사람이 쓰지 않았었고, 두 번째로는 사실은 다양한 혜택, 그 속에 이제 경제적 유인책이
not many people use it. And the problem for us is that because we had too much incentives. And when we talk about the direction of the LLGC, so he talked about the GLLGC. It has the characteristic of the voucher according to his presentation, so that it can contribute to the circulating economy. And we will also listen from the panelists about the Kuture Pay. So for mom and pop's stores, the local currency function should be digitalization, and then we will have the side effect. So now we finished all the presentation, and let me invite 3 panelists to discuss further, including the policy suggestion. We have 4 panelists with us today. We have Sunmi Park, the manager at the Seoul Digital Foundation. She will talk about the local love gift certificates and the digital transformation. She is in charge of the welfare industry and the social welfare, especially at the Seoul Digital Foundation. She is focusing on the digital policy making. Next panelist is the In Seok-seo, the head of the Community Cooperation Department of Buyeok County, and he will talk about the Kudre Pay, Buyeok County local currency circulating in the community. In Seok-seo, he designed and executed and managed the local currency circulation, and now he's responsible for the Kudure Pay in Buyeok County. So all the panelists, please come forward to the stage. We also have a Hejunan from the KT Institute of Convergence Technology. She will talk about the local community-based integrated platform service, together local finance. And then the Sunmi Kim from the Department of ICT Convergence in the Smart City Division, Jeonju City, will talk about the value of the connection between the local finance and the local O2O platform. So each panelist will have 10 minutes, and then we will have the common question, the answers with all the panelists together at the end. If we have enough time, we will open the question to the floor. Then let me introduce Sunmi Park from the Seoul Digital Foundation first.
And we also have Mr. Seok from Buyeok. We also have An Hye-jun from the KT Institute of Convergence. Next, Kim Soo-mi from Smart City Division of Jeonju City Government. So let me now invite our panelists to begin with our discussion, starting with Park Sun-mi from Seoul Digital Foundation. She'll talk about LGC and digital transformation. Good afternoon. I'm Park Sun-mi from Seoul Digital Foundation. Now, before I begin, let me introduce the foundation. The Seoul Digital Transformation is funded by Seoul Metropolitan Government. It was established to provide policy research and plan digital services to support DX of Seoul Metropolitan Government. So in the past, we carried out projects to lead digital technology, but from several years ago, we started to focus on protecting the vulnerable and reduce the digital divide by providing digital trainings. So today I'm going to talk about how to reduce the digital divide and support the underprivileged. In the presentation, Professor Lee mentioned the history of LGC and DX, also raised various issues. One of them was that while focusing on the user, there were some inconveniences. I'm also going to talk about access or convenience of use today. And at the same time, regarding the LGC platform, I'm going to talk about how we can utilize the platform in other ways other than that was intended by the government, using this whole example. Let's first talk about the forms of LGC that are largely divided into three: paper, cash, and mobile. So let's look at operational costs for the three types. Starting with the cost structure, there would be the cost for discount and financial fees, and the payment commissions or fees of merchants. And there are incidental expenses for issuance that include printing cost for paper-based, financial fees in terms of sales and conversion. For paper-based LGCs, printing costs took account for 1%, and financial fees, and issuance cost is around 1.65 to 1.9% for mobile, and within 2% for card type, according to the Ministry of Interior and Safety. In the case of mobile, merchant payment fee stands at nearly 0%. In terms of operation, mobile clearly has strength, but now we are seeing the use of QR codes with mobile payment. So the people who lack digital knowledge may find it difficult to use, and also for merchants, they may experience several inconveniences. I'm going to elaborate on this later. In the case of Seoul Metropolitan Government, we only have mobile LGCs using QR codes. As of 2021, the foundation carried out a survey on the digital divide, and regarding some questions, there were questions related to the use of QR code, and ages below 55 said they are able to use QR code. Around 90.3% answered they can use it, but for ages 55 plus, only 44% that they can use QR codes. So clearly, in the case of QR code based LGC, there is an entry barrier. I think the share would have increased, but we asked the question on the experience of using Seoul Love gift certificate, and 76.5% for ages below 55 said yes, and only 44.8% said yes for ages 55 plus. But for ages 65 plus, the share was 38.3%, and for ages 75 plus, the answer was only 25.3%. The reason for non-use among the elderly was that they didn't need it, mostly. They also said the process to use this is complicated, and some said they don't really know how to use it. So these are issues we need to think about. We also looked into the motivation for using Seoul Love gift certificate according to the research of other organizations. So there was a research done by the Korea Consumer Agency, and the most frequently used form of LGC was paper-based, 56%, followed by card type 24.6%, and mobile 19.4%. Users were motivated to use LGCs for incentives 71.1%. So you can see that this is an evidence to what Professor Lee has mentioned, and some people, 36.5%, used LGCs to revitalize local economy, and around 30% said they use LGC to support local self-employed people. So here we can see that people find benefit of LGC in terms of incentive. So how we can raise the utilization, especially among the elderly who experience digital divide and are not digitally savvy. So what should be your future direction? The share of paper-based will continue to decrease, and the issue of settlement fee will be discussed. So is QR code the right answer? Thinking of DX. Here we need to consider the digital divide, and one of the ways is to provide education to the digitally illiterate. So the Seoul Metropolitan Government and the Seoul Digital Foundation engaged in providing these training programs. From 2020, the government started the digital training project to provide digital training to the local area by paying a visit. But separately, the Seoul Metropolitan Government and the Seoul Digital Foundation has been running a project called Wherever Support Group, where elderly trainings one-on-one digital education program for the elderly is provided by digitally savvy elderly trainers. The program provides tailored education on using QR codes or apps, depending on the necessity. And the feedback was very positive. So, backed by the support, we are planning to expand the project. And the case of the elderly, even after they get training, they easily forget. So we felt the need for repeated training. So that's why I decided to use humanoid robots to provide repetitive trainings. So it's not about replacing trainers with humanoid robots, but it's to raise the efficiency of training by using humanoid robots. So each elderly learner will be matched with a robot. So if a certain issue needs repetition, the software on the robot can be used. And if they get the answer correct, they would cheer these elderly up, giving pep talk. And from July, we have been partnering with Shinhan Bank under an MOU. So for several branches in Shinhan Bank, in order to improve the digital literacy of elderlies, we have been operating a help desk with a trainer in place. As such, rather than providing a one-size-fits-all program, we need to think about various training programs, for example, how to use LGCs, and Jueonju uses credit card type, but there are mobile LGCs that can be charged, which is difficult for the elderly. So we could tailor digital training programs to meet their different needs. Within the curriculum, we need a balanced design of these training programs. And we are also discussing the option of using LGCs to provide disaster relief, such as COVID relief, and Seoul Metropolitan government has been issuing an online only gift certificate. So it would be used to only buy products from small merchants on a designated platform. In addition, Seoul Metropolitan Government has been running a healthcare related program. This is to encourage the movement or people to exercise by using smartwatches. So on smartwatches, you have apps providing cash incentives or online points, mileage, when you walk 10,000 steps. So by using these apps, the government is encouraging to move their body and accrue mileage that can be used as part of the LGC. So considering these elements, we are going to reflect the different values such as community value for LGCs to build new service models and the utilization of platforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. To solve the digital gap, they had a senior customized robot and talked about the education and training about the robot. Next, In Seok-seo from the Buyeol County will talk about the Gujure Pay. Hello everyone, I am In Seok-seo from the Buyeol County. We have the poet who wrote the poem called The Skin Should Disappear. And one of his poems is the 금강, and it says the 부여 area is the area where the older bodies is rotten, but it leaves the fertilizer for the next generation. So the Puyo County is a very special space because the reason why we call the local currency 구뚜레, and 구뚜레 is came from the Baekje kingdom. So when the word of the Baekje kingdom went to Japan, this word changed into the spirit of the Baekje, which is not good. So in the poem of the Shindongyeop said that we try to have the spirit of the Baekje, which is where the capital city was the Puyo County in the Baekje Kingdom. So we wanted to have the spirit of the Baekje Kingdom in this local currency. That's why we named our local currency 구뚜레. So this 구뚜레, compared to the population, we have the 1 million, and we have by the 90% of the usage among our population, which is the number one in the Chungnam province. We have a special characteristic of our town. As other people said, our society is also aged community, so we have a digital divide. So when new technology is adopted, the early adopter can use that technology, but we see the cliff, technological cliff. So it is very important to overcome that technological cliff. So we have the aging society in Puyo County, but they hate to be isolated. So if somebody next to them is doing something, they want to learn that too, and they want it to be included in the mainstream culture. So in the psychologically, it was called peer pressure. So in the Puyo County, the QR code is actively used, and the card payment is also used frequently. So we have the card payment system, but the transaction fee is 0. We also use the QR code system, but the payment transaction fee is 0. We are using the agency of the money coining, but our local currency creation. So we have the operation commission fee for the platform is almost like 3 billion won. Because we made this operation system by ourselves, investing the 320 million, but for 3 years, the operation fee was like 1 billion, so we saved like 2 billion. And looking at the card payment transaction fee, it was usually like 1.5%. So we could save the 4 billion ones. So 6 billion combined was saved by our own creating the application and the system. So that's the one of our characteristic of Kudre Pay. And another characteristic of the Kudre Pay is from the peer pressure. So if you go to China, you can see people using the QR code a lot. Even on the street, the beggars on the street are receiving the money from the people using the QR code, according to like the people's saying. But when I go to the traditional market, all the merchants had the QR codings in front of their shops. So this QR code system is very prevalent in the China. However, unlike the other counties in Korea, we have the QR code installed inside the merchant apps. So if we show these the showing the QR code and to pay is not convenient. They have to have a physical terminal to have the QR payment system. However, our QR code is sold inside the mobile app, so it is very easy to use. And to facilitate this QR code, for the first time in the Chungnam province, we had the for 120 million people who are using, we force them to use this QR code. For the subsidies, we provided the QR code, so the people had to use this money, and the merchant should accept this local currency. So when we adopted this local currency, the collection of the receiving the application from merchant is very important. But we had like a policy issuance. It was easy for us to have the merchant for the Kudre Pay. The farmer subsidies was given with the local currency. So we had a discussion with the farmers and reached to the consensus with them. Our card system is very unique. Usually the people use the credit card, but you know that the transportation card, right? It is an NFC card, so it is use pay transportation with your NFC card, and the credit card charge you later. NFC card do not have any the transaction fee, so the mobile phone of the merchants go with the contact with the NFC, and then that money go into the merchant's account. So there's no transaction fee. So Gwangju City started the local currency earlier than us, earlier than Buye County. Like Kunsan and other cities started this initiative. However, the other cities and the local communities try to use the QR code first, but the aged people could not use this QR code easily. So we thought that maybe we can enhance the user experience because they have experience already to use the transportation payment card. So as we give the farmer subsidies, we gave this NFC card, and elderly citizens could use this card easily. And also, to stabilize this usage, we need a lot of administrative effort. So we opened the merchants at the agricultural cooperatives and livestock cooperatives. That's how we could stabilize the usage of Kudre Pay, the local currency in the Buye County. So we talked about the incentives a lot. The government gives 10% incentives, but if you use this in the traditional market, you will receive the 7% incentive. So it's like a game. We made this gamification because if you pay it, you receive the rewards. And we try to promote and raise awareness about the benefits of the local communities when they use this Kuture Pay. So about the economic participation, we gave the cause and the meaning of paying these credit card, these Kuture payments in the local area. So we gave the incentives to use this Kuture Pay continuously. And now we are trying to have a local currency platform so that the farmers can sell their produce on this platform. So we are refining and updating on these Kuture payments. So once again, I'd like to quote the poem of these poets. So this poet said that the elderly citizens want to tell a story to the next generation so that the next generation can remember me when I'm gone to the heaven. So the elderly generation try to use to keep the village, keep this community so hard. So I want our generation, next generation, my granddaughter, grandchildren want to know how hard I worked for this community. So I think that's the spirit of our Kuture payments.
I think you have explained a very successful case where policy funds played an important role and NFC was used to pay commissions, and I think it also helped promote culture. We will now move on to the discussion by Dr. Anna Jin from KT Institute of Convergence. Good afternoon, I'm Anna Jin from KT. I'm researching and developing ICT platforms, and I'm going to talk about the view of a platform operator. So I'm going to talk about platform services based on local finance. And when we talk about DX, it's about transitioning the local currency to mobile or QR codes for easier settlement. So it's now part of the platform. So the DX of local currencies provide a benefit of more convenience to the users. But if local currencies are only used for payment, everything will be determined by the number of merchants and the funding of the government. So in terms of local finance, we need to think about ways to encourage the participation of communities by using LGCs, and that's one of the research areas we're engaged in KT. And to this end, of course, the platform has to have the function of payment, but we need an integration platform for local communities. This is what we need to expand. Especially when we think about local platforms, we think about delivery apps or secondhand product exchange app. So we need ways to be able to integrate our platform with these apps and also utilize the platform for mobile ID, identification, or checking of credentials of local residents. And this can be used to changing social norms and also accrue mileage that can be used as part of LGC. I think there are various purposes that LGCs and the platform can be used. As mentioned, integrating with the platform makes payment easy, but we also need to think about how to encourage more participation and provide better services. And I want to talk about the future direction of platforms. And there are a lot of ways to utilize the platform, such as secondhand product exchange. So I'm going to talk about the future direction after that. With that, I would like to conclude. Thank you very much. So Overall, we are all talking about how to find ways to utilize the platform, going beyond payment, and also benefiting the local residents and encouraging the participation of the local community. Thank you. Now I invite Kim Soo-mi from the Smart City Division of Jeonju City Government for her discussion on local finance and the O2O platform.
Hello everyone. I'm Sumi Kim, the ICT Convergence Team Leader of the Jeonju Smart City Department. So I think thank you for your presentation and the panel discussion. And today I want to talk about how the local currency is meaningful in terms of the local delivery app, public delivery apps. And I also want to talk about the values of the local O2O platform. So first, I want to talk about the connection between the local finance and local O2O platforms. So already, the many companies are using many local areas is using the local currency in the platforms. And that can be used in the public delivery apps. So for the facilitation of the local currency, the public delivery apps can be used. And unlike the other city, the Jeonju city made the protection measures to protect the mom and pops using the public delivery apps. In that process, we for the first time launched the local currency as a payment tool on the public delivery apps. Kunsan and Gyeonggi and other area, they have the huge size of the local currency, and online the distribution was the purpose of the local currency. So the payment rate was more than 90% in those cities, but that's not in Jeonju. We had the survey about the payment for the citizens, and they answered that if they have the public delivery apps, they wanted to use the local currency, and the other people also like almost 50% said that they said that they will use the public delivery apps because they can use the LLGC, and another reason is to protect the mom and pops and to boost the local economy, and also they answer that they are using it for the payback service. So based on these conditions, the local currency issuance rate went up and we build the public delivery apps. So we made the cooperative type, the public delivery app. Then the app commission and commercials are, we don't have any of those kind of the fee, and now we wanted to expand this service to more people. So we started this service in the April 28th of the February. As a result, we had 3,000 members, and we have a 2 billion won in sales, and also 26.5% was paid using the local currency. So the major role of the Jeonju public delivery app can be only used within the city, is focused not on just local currency, but rather on the local online consumption. Next, I want to talk about the value of the local public delivery apps. So the token and all the gochon, the local currencies, had the value I think that the significance and the meaning of this special form of the local finance that is much valued in the economics of the happiness may change depending on the perspectives of participating citizens. So, if we look at the case of Jeonju Public Delivery app, indiscriminate distribution of discount coupons did not necessarily result in increasing, or the maintaining sales. There is positive correlation that coupons were used when sales increased. However, coupon usage rate in Jeonju delivery app was less than 50% compared to the issuance rate. So the public delivery apps and this service has been used for 7 months, but we have a collaboration with the local companies like Jeonju Bank and the Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors and Haitijilo. So through this cooperation, we will have the promoting events to secure more franchise member and the sales channel. And also, we will make the subscription service within the Jeonju Public Delivery app so that we can provide a sustainable connection between local consumers and the merchants. The number of the Jeonju Public Delivery app is less than half of that of the large private delivery platforms, but I think it will become the huge tool to have the prosperity of the local stores. So the neighbor use the neighbor pay and the coupon use the coupon monies. So they are having their own platforms. But we wanted to seize the opportunities presented by the digital transformation. So we want to have the virtual cycle while providing service benefits to the consumers within the platform. Although the role of the local finance is still partial, but it would be better if the local currency could be supported by a new digital service ecosystem. So to that end, the participation of the citizens is essential, and institutional support should be provided for the underprivileged people. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you for that discussion. So Jeonju has been operating the Jeonju Taste Delivery for 7 months. Thank you for the introduction. So through subscriptions or new models, I think we will be able to develop that into a better platform. So we have listened to all speakers. So Diana, have you been enjoying the discussion?
So yes, I've been listening with rapt attention. It's been very interesting. I think I would like to say a couple of things, if that's okay. So I note that in South Korea, most of the local currencies are owned by and controlled by the local authorities and presumably receive, therefore, public funds to make them viable. And this is, I think, the main difference with what's been going on in South Korea compared to the local currency movement in the UK. And I think in a way it's a great thing because there is a big focus on delivering public benefits and inclusion, but on the and that there is the funding to enable the digital transformation to happen. So that's all very good. However, I guess I worry that this then is less representative, it's less ground up, it's less representative of the people because it is fundamentally a government-led initiative. So I think that is a big difference, and I think there are pluses and minuses about that.
네, 지금 대표적이지 않다.
So we are receiving government support, yes. And how about you, Professor Lee? So overall, I think the general perception is that we need a different level of incentive away from the economic incentive. And the platform must evolve into something that enables not just payment, but other services. Despite the fact we have been relying on economic incentives until now because of the accelerated penetration. But maybe we were too obsessed with speed, of course, with LGC. We know that local governments were quite rushing to compete with each other to make an achievement of with their business result, and also by the central government. But now we're seeing with the change in administration, the government cutting budgets for LGCs. So local governments need to find a way for self-sufficiency. And if we are not quick in doing this, I think LGCs may see their demise. So we need to find a non-financial incentive as soon as possible in death.
Thank you for your comments. So one more question to Diana Finch. So we have a lot of activities in Jeonju City now. So from your perspective, can you give us any advice or suggestion for the policy, or can you give us the new insight about the Jeonju City's activities so far?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I think that the point that was just made about the need to move beyond just thinking about money. I am interested in the work of Arthur Brock from the Meta Currency Organization, and they talk about currency as seeing flows of value. And we need to think beyond financial value to environmental value, to social value. And I think if we start to create currencies and ways of measuring the benefits of this kind of community organization through platforms, then I think we're onto something very, very good. And I would agree that if you're trying to transition away from reliance on government funding, or in our case, it was moving away from a reliance on grant funding, then we have to have a very different approach and look beyond just localization of the market economy and towards a much broader view of social good, environmental good, and how we can help to transform our cities to be cities of happiness, cities of a positive relationship with each other and planet Earth.
So, of course, Jeonju has quite a lot of limitations. So we need to think about ways for self-sufficiency. Ms. Park, any opinions, comments? So rather than on the fundamental issue of LGC, I have talked about the future direction, but I think you have shared a lot of insight already. We need to find new values of LGCs, and we do have the millennials and Gen Z, and people say that they pursue values in their daily lives. So maybe we can capitalize on that to come up with new service models. In the case of LGC, we talk about providing service for all citizens, but we could maybe target a niche target, a small group in providing the services. Thank you.
And Mr. Seo, any comments? So I saw the identity economy to see the value like freedom and justice. So I think I did a little different from the justice or freedom. So the value for the community and the value for the tradition and value for the circulation. So we work together with the public and private sector together. So I think the identity is a one thing in common. So like love for the hometown and the loyalty for the hometown. It sounds very old. However, we have a population of the 65,000. So this like a feeling of the hometown, belonging to the hometown is very important in the local currency. So the identity and all the values will be very important when we design the policy and when we design the values.
So rather than value, identity is important. If we access that, we can expand other environmental or social values. Dr. Park, Dr. An, comment or question? So to be here to talk about local currency and listen to various examples and experiences was very valuable for me. And as a R&D for platform or ICT was very helpful. We do see a lot of services being embedded in the platform, but it was a great opportunity to understand the needs in the field. Maybe we can start from, LGC started out from providing a function, but we need to now think about scalability to contribute to building a stronger local community. So I hope these events are increased in number to contribute to the discussion.
Okay, thank you. So Miss Diana Finch said that the social economic pay, which is the social payment tools. So she is leading the One City project in the Bristol. So would you explain the future outlook of the One City project in the Bristol? And can you give us like a closing comment with that?
Yeah, I mean, first to put that right, the One City plan is something which is much more led by the local government. We see that we have a potential to really help deliver the goals in the One City plan. And the goals in the One City plan are very broad. They fall into 6 main themes. So yes, economy is one, but also housing, community, environment, and so on. And a lot of the goals are goals that we espouse within our own work. So I see myself as hopefully working in partnership with the One City office to deliver the One City plan. We'll have to hope that they will support our work to enable us to do that. But as I say, in the UK, really the government, the local government does not want to invest in these kind of platforms. They want us to come up with a commercial solution that can then help them deliver the goals. And that is extremely difficult to do, as I think we have really all agreed today, to try and make this standalone and financially viable without support from government or significant grants is extremely difficult. Thank you. It's been a really great session. I've very much enjoyed hearing everybody speak, and thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thank you for your wonderful comments.
Professor Lee, with your comment, we will wrap up this session. So I still have a lot of regret with Gochon because a local currency without its upholding of local values is no longer a local currency. So everything can be complete when we think about local community, the sense of community and community values in the end. So I hope we can redesign the Jeonju LGC in this way. Thank you. So we will now close session 3, digital transformation and local finance. Thank you very much for the presentations and discussions. So I hope the 8th International Conference on the Economics of Happiness Jeonju contributes to our discussion in the future. With this, I close the session. Thank you.